All right, here we are. Another crisp autumn day, another Billy Joel re-release. This time we're looking at the Vinyl Collection Volume 2. Similar to the release 2 years ago, this comprises his albums from the 80s and 90s and dips into the 2000s. And it also has a special treat. We're finally getting the full deluxe re-release of Live from Long Island. And here it is release day. We've got our copy here. Well, Michael has his specifically. And since Michael's got some of his own artifacts in the box, we're going to let him do the honors and do the actual opening. As you can see, the shrink wrap is still on. The hype sticker is still there. And the hype sticker will remain because it is a Michael collector's
That's
item.
right.
So that will be there forever. We are also very, very fortunate to have Edward Odowd, the art director for both the Vinyl Collection Volume 1 and 2. And I'll say Edward is a maven of physical media because I also have the official release for Scorpion Tea. And I have the t-shirt downstairs. I didn't put it on, but I thought this was great. This is about the best way you can get a download card is a nice glittery coffin that usually sits right behind me now in my little menagerie. So before we open it, Edward, why don't you tell us a little bit about putting this one together? What was the process like this time around? Once we were into the 80s and 90s, it was maybe a little easier to find some files, maybe a little surprisingly hard. What was it like compared to Volume 1?
What I found really interesting about this project was that there was, in a sense, certain periods, less stuff to choose from for some of the 80s titles, which was interesting because for all of the early stuff, I felt like we had tons and tons of photography, So it was an interesting situation where we kind of had to really maybe look a bit outside of just the Sony archives and stuff like that. And this time around, the collectors like Michael, and I want to name check all of these people later, but there were 6 people who, without their help and support, this project would not have been visually what it became. Because we had rich ephemera to work with, really interesting items. And I spent a lot of time visiting people in person, collecting things, photographing things, so it was a really amazing research, process as well this time. Michael was instrumental in helping me check a lot of stuff. Like, what year is this? Where is this from? I'd find things and really not be able to unearth what they were. So,
Sure.
Michael's help was really extraordinary on that. And at the last minute, Michael, if you want to name Jenny.
Yeah. Jenny Norderby, who's a good friend of ours and friend of the podcast. She is a big collector, especially in international print media. So magazines, newspapers, articles, things like that. And a lot of these have very unique imagery and super unique articles. And so she's had such a wealth of that type of thing. And in the booklet, which we'll get into shortly, it creates a nice visual texture behind a lot of the content. Yeah. And so when Edward, you gave me a call saying, "Hey, do you know anybody?" I said, "Well, not only do I know somebody, but I know someone who I can get on the phone with you in about 2 days." We brought her in, and she contributed some fantastic things.
Such a huge help. And it was at the very tail end, so there was a fair amount of stuff that we had, but again, it was period specific, right? So if we needed something that kind of fit into the Stormfront era and didn't have that, but we had Innocent Man, you know what I mean? Tons of stuff. It was like this, we wanted to kind of give an equal view to each album as much as possible.
Yeah. Good time now to do the unveiling here. Michael, you want to do the honors? Now, before you do it, Edward had requested a nice Price is Right presentation of the box, if you could. There it is.
And so before we even get the shrink wrap open here, I'm always a big fan of the hype stickers. And we have Billy Joel, the Vinyl Collection, Volume 2, 11 LP box set. All albums remastered for vinyl in 2023. Glass Houses, The Nylon Curtain, An Innocent Man, The Bridge, Stormfront, River of Dreams, Fantasies and Delusions, first time on vinyl, and the first time audio release of Live from Long Island, 3 LPs, plus a 60-page booklet with highlights from Billy Joel's later recording career. We'll take a peek at the back here before we open it up.
Looking sharp.
You
Yeah.
can see all 8 titles here. The nice right up in the middle. I've got it behind me, but is the coloring a bit kind of reversed from volume 1? Was it black with some red in it?
That's right. Yep. Trying to keep some sort of, similarities, but also make them really different. We worked really hard on that front cover turntable to ensure that it had more of a late 80s, 90s feel rather than the first volume, which had more of a 70s.
It's reflected as well in the update to the label on the center of the box here, which was the 90s style Columbia vinyl here.
That was another historical find where looking through archives and figuring out exactly when did Columbia change their labels.
Right.
I see. Yeah.
So that we could kind of get a broader sense of when it happened, because it's really not specific. And some reissues, I feel like, use that label not appropriately. I mean, not necessarily for Billy titles, but I've seen other titles, particularly from overseas, that would have a 90s label. But it's like, was that accurate?
And this is one thing that I always tell people, and which I did with volume 1, you have to feel and see with your naked eye to get the full effect in it. Can you speak a little bit to some of the different ink and the way the textures of the printing is on this?
We've got some really nice stock to begin with, really nice paper. And then, sort of with a spot varnish on the album covers on the front of the booklet.
Yeah, it's a very nice thick stock here.
So this is sort of the prelude telling the story,
Yeah, I really like the feel of the paper. It's almost got a satin quality to it.
It seems like you found photos that are very close to ones we've seen, but are alternates, like perhaps not the ones that have been out there the whole time. So it's familiar, but it's definitely new.
Yeah, when going through a lot of these old shoots, I definitely tried to, sort of source things that were even just a little bit unusual.
Yeah.
Sure.
And this is all still the essay?
Uh-huh. Love that Glass Houses outtake. So incredibly cool. That was John Jackson came with that kind of in the middle of the process. Like, what do you think of this shot? And I was just like, this is incredible. Where did you get it?
And so that's what's behind his house then. So that's the side we never saw, but he's throwing the rock.
I'm assuming, like, I don't know the actual backstory, but
so I can tell you because I've actually been on the property.
Okay.
Right.
Not since the restraining order, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, essentially the front cover for the album, where you're seeing the glass house, this is the reverse side of that. So the photographer here, I think it was Jim Houghton, is standing in front of the glass house shooting out towards the water.
So then we start with the albums. So we got Glass Houses and lyrics. And so each section with the lyrics then, comes with a lot of ephemera, right? Like you're seeing on this spread. So Glass Houses obviously being the one that we had the most, the absolute most, probably of any title of his. I sort of opted to request to make the Glass Houses section a bit longer because there was so much visual stuff to cover.
I love that cassette front and center on there.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, this guy and this guy are mine. These look fantastic. And again, you can see here under the lyrics with the print behind it, which looks really, really great. It gives it a little more depth than just lyrics on a page, which is really nice.
And what's the print this time?
Oh, that's the press that Jenny, who had Michael brought in. That's press clippings that she supplied.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This spread I love because we got to use the 2 film strips from Sometimes a Fantasy. on the right there. Jeff had given me those.
Yeah.
Jeff Schock had given me those years ago, and I've been holding them, just waiting
Just
for
there's going to be the
because
project just for
they're
it.
so
Yeah.
awesome. They're scanned nice and high res, you know. Like you see that, and you just I hear the song starting up in my head, just from looking.
And Jack, I don't know if you've seen these two before. This is the 12-inch single for Fantasy and Lena, and everything is written in Billy's handwriting.
And this incredible image and the tube ups. Yep. I know Gretchen and I really loved the way Billy Joel punks out that press clipping is sort of alongside him making this irreverent face that, you know, there's not a lot of photographs of him making like a, you know, a punk, like, you know, and so there it was.
Yeah. And I like the combination of different international versus domestic singles over here.
Yeah, there's a treasure trove of those. I mean, it's really incredible how many languages, right? These singles contain, you know.
Y'all can't see here because it's, you know, it's a little small on camera, but this section here underneath each large album cover is, I believe it's Billy giving his thoughts on each album, correct? Right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that was something that we kept from volume 1 as well, where, you know, his notes were handled the same way, you know, which I think is really important to give this, you know, kind of more personal overview, you know, for the listener.
And it's a reflective context. Now this shot, I've never seen it before, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was like, this has got to be in. Look at this. He looks fantastic.
Yeah.
So I know, Edward, you and I talked about this, but we also talked about it with John Jackson. So Jack, this is the part of the Nylon Curtain shoot.
Oh, that's post-shaving?
Where Billy shaved mid-shoot.
Yep.
In the 80s, Joel was born.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
I was certain, you know, when I was looking through the shoot, I'm like, this is not the same shoot. It can't be the same shoot.
Right.
You know, it's the same shoot.
Sure is. Yep. I know.
Yeah, so for a lot of the titles, the earlier ones, there's, you know, there'll be, I was able to see, you know, source cassettes and, and then there's that interesting, you know, if you look at the upper right there where your thumb is, I believe that is that's a promo item from Sony, from Columbia, that was a blank book, right? So you could make your own notes, right? But made it, you know, to make it look like a novel.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, that was a physical book that you have a picture of. That's not an illustration.
No, it's a physical book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's on that page are a bookmark and a photo of the physical book. Yeah. You'll see as we go through the book, like as he becomes like a bigger and bigger star, right? The promo items that started to come like more and more and different, you know what I mean? By the time we get to this is the time, it's like there's a watch, there's a clock, there's like bigger. It's so interesting because I never saw these things.
Yeah.
No, wow. So now we're getting an Innocent Man era here.
And that say like that HBO poster in pink on the right hand side. Yeah. You know, so there was some sort of HBO thing done around that time.
Because John Jackson told me that that was the original name of Live from Long Island was Billy Joel, a TV first, which is what it says here.
Oh, wow.
Is that a jukebox label?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, jukebox strip.
It's a bunch of those scattered throughout.
That's great.
And again, and here's another, Jack, if you see that, an outtake from the front cover sessions for the record.
So funny to see it in color.
I know. It's like, wow, he's wearing a purple shirt.
Yeah. Is that like a black and white? Is this like a Frankenstein thing where they had to put him in purple to make it show up, right?
Right.
Sure.
Some of the t-shirts and 45s. End of the bridge.
That's nice with the black background on that one. Really,
I know. I like
stark
it. Pops
contrast.
really nicely against that black. I like it.
Even just from the last page too, just turning over and seeing that. Some great studio shots.
Golden
Yeah,
ticket.
those shots of the collabs, Ray Charles and Julian Lennon and all that stuff. So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Steve Winwood, Julian Lennon, Phil and Billy. And yeah, Billy and Ray with Phil.
And some more cool t-shirts. I love that image of him behind the door. But see, if you go to the top now, you'll see the clock I was talking about with the piano.
Oh,
So could you imagine getting that on your desk? Like this incredible ceramic clock, that says Billy Joel in the shape of a piano in red velvet flocked box. It's so awesome.
Right. Yeah, that's real nice.
Michael's going on eBay right now looking for it.
I'm gonna set up a save search to see if that baby turns up.
Well, you have to go to Paul Fierro's house,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and there's the this is the time watch over here too.
Yeah. Little Casio. This is the time.
Yeah.
Right. Stormfront.
Front.
So let's talk about that back patch in the lower right.
Yeah.
So cool. I'm not sure who it belonged to, but it was attached to the back of a jacket.
So you got a nice clean shot and then just brought out the patch. Wow, that's very cool.
And what's that light brown? Looks like is that the video box?
It's a single for We Didn't Start the Fire.
Okay. I like that photo because by Stormfront, he really looks so different. And you really found one where it's obviously the late 80s. It's the late 80s haircut, but his facial expression looks like it was 10 years prior. Like if you Photoshop 70s hair on it.
Yeah. It's a super complimentary shot.
Video's still there with a couple tickets and a record.
All right. River of Dreams.
Nice. Yeah.
And I can't recall, but are the essays longer this time around, or did they go onto the second page last time?
I think the last time that there were some that did, but not all. But I feel like with these, it's probably most, if not all, go onto the second page.
Yeah. Okay. You seem a little more in depth from him.
Which I'm personally, I was totally fine with them. Like more background, that's awesome. More to learn and read.
Good day. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's fun seeing all my stuff in here. I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like this era we start to see a lot more like cool, laminates, tour laminates, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has got like some foil embossing in there. And this here, that's from my second Billy Joel show, right there. So a lot of the other ones from prior to this I've acquired that are in here, but this one is actually a show I was at. That's my actual seat.
And then Fantasies and Delusions.
Beautiful.
So, Michael, I'm going to let you tell the story of the cover for this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Jack and I had Hyung Ki on the podcast a few years ago to talk about working with Billy and talk about the record. And prior to our interview with him, his team, reached out to us just with a few bullet points of some things that they're working on. And he just, did a mention of saying, I know when this came out, he was going by the name Richard, but from shortly after that, through now, he's been going by his given first name, Hyung Ki. So if you could just please refer to him as that, as you're talking about him or as you're talking with him as well. And so, so we took that note, into mind when we did the interview. And, fast forward a year or two when Edward's working on this and we were just kind of going back and forth about some details. And it just popped into my head. I said, well, okay, Fantasies is going to be on here. Which name are you using?
Yeah.
And then I told you the story and you're like, wow, that's an interesting question. Let me run it up the flagpole and see what they want to do. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, the change was made. And so it now is listed as Hyung Ki on the front cover, which is awesome.
So he's honored by his proper first name, which is fantastic.
Because it's just
and then
in that respect.
Here we go.
What you've all been waiting for, folks. It's finally here. They've been listening to our pleas and cries and complaints over the. It's finally here, guys. The full show.
Yep. on 3 records.
Now,
Yeah.
are those were those still photos or are those film frames?
Screen-
Oh no, it was video. So it was
Yeah,
stills.
screen
Video
grabs
stills,
from
right?
the video.
Oh, they
Yeah.
are. Okay.
Yep.
And that lovely shot to close the book with that image of Billy walking on the dock. That was Gretchen Brennison sourced that image and came forward with it and said, "I think this would be really nice to include." And I said, "I think it would be even nice to make it the closing statement."
It's a really
Yeah.
nice shot. I believe this is the Nylon Curtain shoot as well.
So yeah, so let's call you guys out. Do you want to read that
Sure.
read that line to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, I want to thank you for including us in this part. It's a special thanks to Michael Grosvenor, Eric Fellon, Paul Fierro, Liz Weingart, and Jenny Nordaby for memorabilia and artifacts from their personal collection.
Thank you,
Nice.
each and every one of you.
Glass Houses kicking things off here. And this is my first album, and this is our podcast namesake. So this is awesome and exciting to see. Yeah.
For me, no matter what, a copy of Glass Houses on vinyl never gets old.
No, I
It's true.
agree.
All the restoration for the outer jackets was done years ago.
Okay.
With a
Interesting.
retoucher and myself art directing.
Mhm.
Because what we did for the CD box set to sort of save time and money was we scanned everything really large. So this is all from original album, like scanning old albums and restoration. But say in a case like Fantasies and Delusions, we started new, we started fresh, using digital files,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
I kind of pulled the digital files apart and reassembled as a larger surface.
Yeah. All right.
the back cover, Billy at his kitchen table.
And some of these titles are also really interesting to me because I've had the same boss at Sony for all the years that I've worked with them, and in terms of the art department, and he's
Oh, sure.
responsible for designing a lot of these covers.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
really impressive, to look at this history and and be able to talk to him about it.
Now who was that? I bet you I know the name.
Christopher Ostapchuk.
Yes. Okay.
Can you do this to the straight on?
Oh, like that.
Yeah. There you go. Nice. I don't know why that does it for me.
No, the discs are nice and level, nice and flat. They got to cool enough before they got put in the sleeves. An Innocent Man, the iconic Mercer Street photo shoot.
It actually looks that sounds correct. I don't know if that's the case or not, but the location
Yeah.
looks very much like Mercer Street.
Get the classic lyrics and classic photo there. The Bridge. Again, here's another one it's only the second Sony proper release of on vinyl. This back cover would have been, I imagine, fairly easy to recreate just because of locking on the font and
Yeah.
a solid color underneath it. Yeah.
Once I matched the typeface, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you'd be
absolutely.
surprised at how many mutations of Helvetica there are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
That looks nice. It's vibrant.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like the choice of the red against the gray. For the longest time, Jack, I never realized that was Doug from the Matter of Trust video shoot. He just looks up. You can't even see it
Right.
right there.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
bottom. Very
Yeah.
serious.
All right. We are now veering into somewhat uncharted territory, at least for a lot of us, which would be Stormfront
Uncharted
on vinyl.
waters.
Uncharted Storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was always fascinated with the front cover of this. Again, from speaking with Chris Ostapchuk, and this is a conversation we haven't had yet, but I want to know how they made that cover, because it's so pre-Photoshop, right?
Yeah.
And so this billowing custom flag, like the flag had to have been fabricated, right? The setup must have been live and shot. Like, wow. You know what I mean? It's just something we don't even think about anymore, you know?
And I thought this was an interesting choice. This is the very first one with they went with a very sparse.
Yeah, no additional photos or anything.
Yeah, a lot of white space or off blue space.
This cover looks great big.
Yeah. All About Soul starts side 2.
It does.
That's weird.
This may have been one of the cases where, because it wasn't on vinyl, right? So we didn't have certain words, side 1, side 2, that sort of thing. So those were comprised from other letter forms in that stack of song titles.
I see. So you kind of compiled the lettering together for these from the original lettering.
From what was there?
Yeah, and sometimes having to create a new letter. You know, the also on Glass Houses, you know, it was proposed for the legal copy at the bottom on the back. To just be set in, you know, Helvetica or something like that. And I was like, but my copy that I got when I was a kid, it's written, it's in his hand, you know.
Right.
So I actually sat with a big piece of tracing paper, my glasses, and kind of like kept A being against the you know, and I created it, you know.
Wow.
I really wanted to make sure like we had that authenticity, you know.
Yeah.
We've got some nice lyrics here. This looks really nice.
What we did here is we took, I think it's the Friday Music version you were talking about, Michael. They did this as a gatefold LP jacket, and so I took the gatefold portion and applied that style to the inner sleeve, because since it was the first U.S. issue, it's like, well, you know, we wanted to make it look as nice as possible too, you know, as inviting with as much art as possible.
Oh yeah, so here we have the new, should be the new label. There it is. Yeah,
I see that.
Yep, there we are. Yeah. This was very much John Jackson's call.
Yeah,
I have to give credit where credit's due. He came to the table with that, and it was like a very, you know, he really wanted to see that, and so we did a lot of research and comping, you know, just to make sure that everything was accurate.
Careful, don't catch the seam.
I know. All right, next up for the first time on vinyl, folks.
We are officially on the other side of the flagpole in Mario. This is new to vinyl.
So talk about this one a bit. So what was, with there never being a vinyl reference, what was your process with this one?
Well, so the CD files, the digital files, existed, but they were incomplete. But I was able to source enough from them, and then sort of work on making them look better high res. Like the typography could all be replaced, but that border, you know, and the sort of the more filigree items were, you know, those were the only ones that existed. So just a lot of retouching and doctoring and color matching to make sure we, you know, got the same look and feel as the original. And the inner sleeve for that you're holding is that's sort of custom and new, you know, in that we use the photos large, you know, because it was a great opportunity for these great photos that I feel like weren't really seen that much. And then, of course, you have things, you know, that go along with this, like where the original art, right, like the front cover is square, but the back cover is rectangular, right?
Oh,
so the border, you know, had to be sort of like cut and spliced together to make a square, you know?
Yeah. Because, it filled out the tray card. That's right.
Yeah. Cool. It's like a greenish gray with orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. That looks awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun one to do because I had to, you know, source an old CBS Masterworks and kind
That
of
was it.
that,
Yeah.
the old Columbia stuff we have that we've been using that stuff for years, but this was a whole new can of worms.
Yeah.
And the piece here,
Here we go.
last but certainly not least, the one that people thought would never happen. But we have proof tonight that it's here. It's real and it's spectacular. So tell us about this one. I love that you went with the Laserdisc, the original video and Laserdisc design.
Yeah, so that was by request. That was per John Jackson. Was that the Billy Joel office, like collectively was interested in pursuing this as the front cover. So Michael, you graciously scanned that image for me, which I restored from scratch with everything else. So I matched all the typography, so created all fresh new graphics that mimic the original. So that
to give you
that block at the bottom was here we go.
Yeah.
There's the Laserdisc in question.
Right.
But the big trick is if you put them side by side, right, and you look at the block of copy on the bottom, completely different because now you got a complete show.
And we got the back, which mimics that as well. And it's a triple LP, so everything's in like I said, it's a nice sturdy sleeve, but all the records are tucked into the sleeve like that. And then here we have the back, which again follows closely the Laserdisc, how that looked and came together. But now we've got the full track listing over 3 LPs. And let me bring this up a little bit. Let's see. There it is. So you got the 4 photos that were on the back, 5 photos. And then you have the track listing and then production and band credits down below.
And is that a thicker outer sleeve or is it the standard?
That's a wide spot.
It's significantly thicker
than
a standard LP.
Right.
So Fantasies and Delusions is in between because it's 2 LPs.
Mm-hmm.
But this to fit 3 is certainly the thickest.
Yeah, that was something that had to be done, like a wider spine so that the 3 LPs didn't kind of like push out too much and warp the jacket. And also, so that the records wouldn't rub, because we don't want them scratched.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You wait this long to get a scratch record. Nice.
Yeah, I know the audio was meticulously worked on.
Yeah. No, but this is really exciting. This is one that folks have been looking for a long time. And, you'll hopefully hear it soon enough if you haven't yet, but they really took a lot of care with the audio mix, like Edward, you said, and it feels like the original show in so many ways. It's not a Jim Boyer mix. It's, certainly some modern mixing techniques, but it feels organic. It feels live. It feels real. And it doesn't take away, all the characteristics of the original. Well, this was a lot of fun, Edward. It's been a treat to go through this with you. And, me personally, it was a pleasure to get to work on this with you and go through it. And I'm glad you could find some use out of my collecting habits. And, I'm just thrilled to be able to help tell that story with you.
Yeah. And thanks so much for having me back on the podcast.